Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be container planting cucumbers, squash, and zucchini. If you've watched any of my other previous videos on container planting vegetables, you can skip to about halfway in this video because I am going to be covering some of the same things that I did in the other videos. At about the halfway point, I'll be talking about the different varieties I'm using of cucumbers and squash and zucchini and why I picked those. Make sure you're subscribed to the HortTube with Jim Putnam YouTube channel because I'm also going to be installing an irrigation system for all of these containers from these videos, so they'll be automatically watered throughout the summer, and then I'm going to be doing follow-up videos on pest and those kinds of things as these containers come under attack, and they certainly will over the course of the summer, and how I control those things organically. I'm going to be using a 7-gallon nursery container to plant these vegetables in. They not only have a hole in the bottom, but they also have holes on the edges of the container, which are great at allowing water to drain out, even if your pot is sitting flat on the ground and that hole over the course of the summer ends up sealed off and doesn't drain very well. This will continue to drain. You can use a decorative container. They'll usually have holes in the bottom, or you have to put the holes in the bottom. If you do, also go through the process of putting some holes in the side so that throughout the summer they will definitely continue to drain. This container is about 14 inches deep. I actually will buy 2 different potting soils when I do these jobs. I'll buy a very inexpensive one. The inexpensive one I bought is a little more chunky, and I'll use it in the bottom half of this container, and it will help with drainage at the bottom of the container. It's also less expensive. And then I'll use a more premium product up toward the top. The main difference between the premium one and the non-premium one is the premium one has mostly peat moss, and peat moss stays more consistently wet between watering, so that's very helpful, especially as these things become root bound in these containers throughout the summer. That peat moss will hold more water. So here's my chunkier potting soil. I'm just going to fill each of these about halfway. And here's my peat-based potting mix that I'm going to fill up the upper half of the container with. I tamped the soil down in this container. I'm going to do the zucchini from seed. I couldn't find a variety that was a dwarf compact variety in a plant, so I did in a seed, and that's what we need with the zucchini. Just make sure it says dwarf or compact or something like that. You do not want a long vining zucchini plant in your container. I'm going to dig down about a ½ inch, drop the seed in there, cover it, tamp it down lightly. I'm going to end up with 2 plants in this container, but I'm actually going to put about 6 seeds in here to start, and each of them about a ½ inch down. In about 2 weeks, they'll all be up enough that I'll select the 2 most vigorous ones, and I'll take the other 4 out. And that's how we'll do that. We'll just select them based on how vigorous they're growing after they come up. I'm planting crookneck squash, and I'm also going to end up with 2 plants in each container. These were seeded, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, with 3 seeds in this one cell. I'm going to cut 2 of these off down to the base. Each of these in this cell pack have at least 2 in it, and I'm going to cut them down to 1, and then I'm going to space one of these on one side of the container and one on the other side. Again, this is a compact variety of crookneck squash. Definitely don't try to separate the plants. Just cut them off right at the base. Keep the most vigorous one is the one we're going to keep. And I'm going to put one on one side like that. I'm going to put the tag in the container so I remember what it is. I'm cutting the other one off at the base, leaving the most vigorous one and planting this one on the other side. We should be able to do fine with 2 plants. If we find that 2 won't play nicely together later in the summer, we can cut one of these off at the base and leave the other one. I'm using a bush type of cucumber. Make sure it says something like that on the label. Otherwise, they're very aggressively vining, and we'd have to stake them up and spend the summer tying them onto something. If we use the bush type, they'll still vine. They'll come out over the container and go down to the ground, but it'll be easy to control them. They'll be much more neat and orderly. Same thing on these cucumbers. I'm going to put 2 in the container. There's 2 in each of these cells, so I'm taking one out, cutting it right off at the base. putting one on this side, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side of this container. Actually, this other cell only has one. I'm gonna put the label in the container and put this one just flush the same depth they were planted when I got them. So that's it. We've got our zucchini in this one, squash in this one, bush cucumber in this one. The next thing I need to do is fertilize these. I'm just gonna put a light dusting of this tomato tone on them, which is also for other vegetables. Just a light dusting across the top of these containers. Works perfect. And then I just kind of work it in a little bit with my fingers, being careful on this seeded container. But I want to make sure when I water these, the fertilizer goes straight down and doesn't end up washing to one side or the other. That's why I'm mixing it in just a little bit, so it'll definitely fall down evenly through the container. This is a great organic fertilizer. I'll reapply this every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season. I didn't fill these containers all the way to the very, very top with soil because when I water them, I don't want the water running off the side. I want it to soak in. So it has a little place for a reservoir. I'll put water in this one like that, and then like this, and I'll give it a chance to soak in. This peat moss is dry in these bags, and it takes several times watering them to get it wet. It'll take a long time for it to dry out once it's wet this first time. I'll probably be able to go 3 or 4 days before I need to water these again by doing this, 3, 4, 5 times, so just letting it soak in between. They'll start to demand more and more water over the next couple weeks, and as that happens, I'll install the automated irrigation system. So here's our compact yellow squash, our bush cucumbers, and our zucchini that we're doing from seed, which is a compact variety. Make sure you're subscribed to the HortTube with Jim Putnam YouTube channel for follow-up videos as I put down an irrigation system that will water these automatically during the summer and follow up with videos on organic pest control on these containers. Thanks for watching.